Welcome to another episode of Stutter with Confidence to the viewers. And I'm happy today. Mike Wilson, first of all, and happy to be joined by Raiani Sibien. And if I mispronounce that, which I probably did, feel free to correct me.
Well, I would just maybe say Raiani, rather than Raiani.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Sorry. So Raiani, welcome to the podcast. And if you would, for viewers that don't know yet, tell people where you live, where you're from originally, and what you do, if you would.
Thank you so much, Michael. First of all, to have me here today. I'm super really happy to talk to you today. So I have been living in Belgium for the past 3 years now, and I'm from Brazil originally, but I left the country in 2006. So I have been living abroad for almost 16 years now. And I do work for an international organization here.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And so diving into your life and experience as a person who stutters. So are you like a very high percentage of us folks who stutter that you've got some pretty tough memories from childhood of learning to sort of really dislike your stutter and developing shame and all that below the iceberg stuff?
Yeah, sure. I think growing up with stutter, it's something that's really, really hard and challenging, because you don't know why can't you talk like everyone else. And then at first, I didn't know, I would see people making fun sometimes of me, especially all the kids. Why do you talk like this? Why do you have these blocks? Why can't you have this flow, thoughts, talk like us, and all of these that I would do some people would sometimes laugh about it. And then you start to gain conscious that there is something wrong with your speech, with the way that you talk. And once you start being conscious about it, that's when you start to fear. So I started to not really want to talk in class and in any kind of situation that maybe I felt would expose me. So I remember in school, I was 3rd grade, I was 9 years old. And I remember that every person had to actually read one sentence from this book. And then, of course, I started being so nervous because I started to count which part was supposed to be my part, so that I can try to read first and then, rehearse, although it never really works. But I was trying. And then when it came to my turn to actually read out loud, I started to have these blocks and say at the end. The entire class did a choir, everyone together, imitating me, mocking me. And I felt so humiliated in front of the entire class. And I do not remember anything else. I just completely froze. I felt like my body stopped, everything stopped. I couldn't think. I don't really remember if my teacher reacted to that or not, but I remember feeling like from now on, I'm never gonna read out loud in front of anyone. And I have to say that to this day, I still struggle when I have to read in front of others. I sometimes try to force myself to do it, but I still don't feel entirely comfortable, because I know at some point I will have this, which is which doesn't sound very natural if you do it all the time. So people can see that you're like struggling, but they don't really know why. Because so many people do not really realize that I like stutter. They think that my blocks are just some maybe language barrier because I am like speaking in English or some other reason. They don't know that, no, I struggle with this, you know? So, and I think that like, because people don't know usually, they will look at me trying to really understand what is happening, why she's doing all of these interjections like, you know? So it's pretty hard. But I have also realized that nowadays, when I start to mention to people that I have this challenge, becomes a little bit easier because at least they know. And then sometimes if I really don't want to really read out loud because maybe it's a big chunk and I don't want to make people wait. And then I can say, okay, maybe someone else can read because it's going to be quicker. You know, if we have this like meeting for 30 minutes and it really doesn't matter who is going to be reading, maybe I would let someone else read because it's just going to flow faster, you know, and not really everyone has the patience to be always waiting. And then I start to try to rush because I feel I am taking people's time. And then I stutter more because of that. I was like, okay, maybe someone else can read for this time. And then the next time I can read. So it's a little bit of a challenge. But as a child, it was very, very hard because I had so many like situations where I really felt that people did not respect the fact that I have a different timing in my like speech. I might not say everything in the time that people really like expect me to. So for I also remember another time where I called a classmate and her mother answered me over the phone, and then I asked her, can I please talk to your daughter? And she just called her daughter saying, is your friend who like stutter? But the way she said it in Portuguese was like making fun of it. I don't have the word in English for that, but in Portuguese it sounded very pejorative, you know, when you're making fun of someone. And I was then 11 years old. And I also remember that after that, for me to make a phone call was a nightmare until I was like 19, 20. I struggled a lot to make one phone call because I had that like registered in my mind. So it took me a long time to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna make a phone call. I would too, I used to, but I was always feeling very like uncomfortable. So I think it's a long process to come to terms with it. And I don't know if we come to terms completely, but is an everyday thinking like I can do this, trying to feel confident about it, because I also think that the confidence plays a huge role, but it's a challenge.
I definitely hear you, and I'm sure a lot of folks that are watching or listening to this hear you on that as well. And those experiences, those what I like to call fear-based learning experiences, right? Where in your case, the experience of reading aloud when you were in the third grade, and then that experience when you were 11 of calling your friend's house and you know having the friend's mom sort of be condescending when she told your friend that you were on the phone. Oh, it's stutterer girl or whatever, however she said it. That stuff feels like some version of social death, or like we are just being knocked down to the inferior levels of humanity. And it runs deep, right? That gets in our soul, so to speak. Certainly lives in our mind in a powerful way. And that then trying to avoid that kind of pain again feeling like that, right? And I think that's really what we're running from. It's the, I don't want to feel like that ever again if I can avoid it. So the way I thought about it from the time I was first made fun of in school when I was 11 was not to give people ammunition with which to, you know, attack me with, so to speak. And that obviously led to a life where I wasn't being myself anymore. I was being the super quiet guy who wanted to make that phone call, but I'm not going to make it. And a friend of mine I know who stutters says that with a couple of his good friends as a child, they knew who it was when they answered and they heard nothing for a few seconds. So his silence was how they knew it was. His name was Michael also. So literally he was defined by his silence. Um, and it runs so deep. And you're absolutely right. That's what we're trying to later unwind. That sense that we are laughable, we are below everybody else whenever we're stuttering, and that we're taking huge social risk every time we stutter, that maybe we're about to humiliate ourselves. And for, as far as I can tell, the most social species in the history of the planet by far, although I know, some would argue dolphins and octopi and various things are up there as well. But for such a social species, humiliation, amongst those who you want to have an opinion of you is about as big a risk as we can take, short of literally, physically dying. But the thing is, and what I talk about a lot, is those experiences were not representative of what the entire world will think about us, right? Kevin on the playground when I was 11, the bully in the 6th grade, or even say, well, and I know it can be more challenging for people when it's coming from an authority figure, like a teacher, for example. I get that because kids are looking up to the teachers, obviously, as knowing what's going on and doing the right things and all that. But the reality is, like you pointed out, people are confused. People really don't know, right? So probably those kids in the class, I'm sure when even adults are ignorant. Even a lot of speech therapists are ignorant when it comes to stuttering. So certainly that 3rd grade class full of kids was ignorant about it, right? And so they just, it sounded different. And I think a lot of people that don't stutter get confused because sometimes they go, too, when they're trying to think of what they're about to say. So they have these disfluent moments. So I think they intuitively think maybe they understand them. It's not like a lot of other things, like with someone in a wheelchair. Well, it's not like I'm sometimes in a wheelchair. So it's like, oh yeah, I know what that's about. Unless I just have like an injury in sports or something like that. But people think that they get stuttering when they really have no idea what's going on with us, which is that we are doing these extra things, whether it's tension. I used to push through blocks like that, trying to, force it out with more effort, lifting weights with my face, as I used to call it, or using filler words or whatever the case may be, or, tapping of the leg, or a friend of mine used to press his finger into his temple to try to set that word free. We do all sorts of extra stuff that people just don't know. that those things have to do with our stutter. And this is why it's so powerful, as I like to call it, to just come out of the closet. Just proclaim it from the rooftops. I am a person that stutters. Sometimes you're going to hear me go, a lot before I say words. That's a part of the stutter. I am anticipating I'm not going to be able to get that word out. So I'm trying to use a trick to help me get the word out. That's what's happening. Because people truly are ignorant as to what's going on. But if we educate them, close my window a little bit here. Morning sun is shining bright here in upstate New York. But if we tell people what's going on, then we have filled their education void on this subject with good information. This is exactly what's happening. Now you know, right? And now they know. And just like, well, say somebody started in your workplace that had a hearing issue. And so when they first met you, or early on in the relationship, they said, look, Raiani, so I've got this hearing issue. So sometimes I might ask you to repeat things a few times, or I might, look like I didn't get something, just so you know I have the hearing issue. Now, would anybody who's a remotely close to decent human being be like, oh, what a moron, right? What an idiot, or what an inferior person? No, it's like, she or he's got a hearing issue. I get it, and now rather than, and the deaf community is another, it's in this sense, I think, very similar in many cases historically to stuttering, because a lot of, that's something which you can sort of hide, right? It's not obvious when you walk in the room that you have a hearing issue, unless I suppose there's hearing aids in that are obvious. So a lot of deaf folks in history, from what I understand, have tried to hide it, and they try to go through life, reading lips as best they can, playing it off, because they don't want to be seen as having a deficiency, having a difference, being different, being, in some way less capable than others. And perhaps that's a thing that they've got sensitivity about also, given their life experiences. And maybe they were made fun of, right, when they were 12 years old. But that community has found this out, and stuttering community as well, that when we put it out there in a courageous, honest sort of way, or just stuttering, just letting the block happen, right? In other words, rather than, we're reading something, I'll just grab the paper by my desk here, rather than reading this, bright, futures, parent handout. It's bright futures, parent handout. And in the one case, it's not necessarily clear that we're a person that stutters. It's like, well, maybe they're, reading is a challenge for this person. Maybe she doesn't read English so well, right? Or it's like, okay, she's got a stutter. I see it, I get it, And for us people who stutter, many of us, myself included, and I'll ask you this, Raiani, sorry, have you had this fear historically, like I did, that people maybe were going to think you're stupid, or think that you're less intelligent, or less competent, or less, with it intellectually, and therefore that was part of the impetus for wanting to hide the stutter so much, was to not show people that I can't even talk when I want to, that sort of thing. But in the process, in my example of this was I said, probably 300 times in a 15-minute presentation when I was in the 9th grade. Oh, and this is the, thing that holds the cup, right? 15 in a row, a ridiculous number of And if I'm in that crowd, I'm thinking this guy has no idea what's going on with his own science invention, right? Because why else would somebody say, 15 times in a row? He's stalling because he doesn't know what he wants to say. Maybe he's, got a pretty significant intellectual disability going on. And I, as a 15-year-old, was choosing that possible reaction over, rather than just saying, this is the cup holder. It was anything to hide the fact that I stutter. Yeah. Look like you're having quite a few thoughts on this. You want to share?
Yes. So I think this is this is such a good thing that you just mentioned, because we always fear that people will think that we are not capable or intelligent and smart and skilled, because I felt for so many years and so many times that whenever I would have these pauses, this block, or say, to try to fill in these gaps, I would feel that people would just look at me like she doesn't know what she really wants to say. She has nothing interesting to say. She's not prepared for this presentation or for this job interview, which is even worse, because maybe you really prepared so well, you read everything about the company, you really studied what you wanted to say about what you had to offer about the company, but once you're there, you are struggling to say everything, and people just think that you're not prepared, that you don't know what you want to say, that you're not sure because you seem to really hesitate to talk, and you feel super bad. It's like you feel helpless, you don't know, okay, how can I prove that this is not the case? So you can tell people I stutter, but you still don't know what they are going to think about you, because because people don't really know much about it. They can still think that you are less capable because you have this, which is not true. So it puts you out almost in this impossible position that sometimes you don't even know what's best, what to do, but you feel that people are judging you. I felt this in many different ways, but particularly I would say in a professional setting. I think when I had to do a presentation at work or in class also, and then you feel like you cannot get the words out and you start saying yes, or and people just look at you like she doesn't know what she wants to say. She didn't prepare for this. And what happened, for instance, when I was doing my graduation, every time I had to do a class presentation, I spoke to my professors in private, because they needed to know. I didn't want them to be grading me based on my ability to be fluent and to talk so nicely and persuasive and stuff. So I had to tell them, I don't want you to judge me based entirely on my words, on my ability to talk well in front of the class, of explain the topic, because I can maybe write a whole essay for you right now, but I am not going to be probably able to say as well if I have to say it in front of the class. So it's very difficult, and then you do feel that sometimes you don't know if people are really judging you based on what they can see on the content that you are giving them, even if you like struggle, but you still have the content right there. Or if they are really making their like opinions based on how fluent you are to say that.
Well, let me ask you this question on this subject. So 99% of people do not have a stuttering problem, right?
Yes.
So do you think, well, so for those 99%, they're not being judged on their fluency, right? Because they all have that power of fluency. So they're being based on the quality of their presentation, what they say, right? The presentation matters some, but in my opinion, the quality of what the person is saying. When we speak, the whole point is to communicate, right? To get what's in here in to the minds of the listeners, right? That's the point of talking. And nobody wins contests per se for fluency, right? Because 99% of people are fluent, right? So anything that 99% of people can do is by definition not special or not impressive. It's like, you know, being able to walk around the block is, you know, like if I hear, you know, hey, somebody was able to walk around the block, I'm not like, oh, that's so impressive, you know, like that's so cool, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, 99% of us can walk around. It's not a very special thing. So clearly nobody's winning any contests for fluency in this world. It's not a category. People do win, obviously, for the content of what they say. And I would also add that 99% of the world's losers, however you define loser, whatever your category for that might be, 99% of them are fluent. So fluency is no golden ticket to greatness in our species. And so someone I like to speak about with this subject is Stephen Hawking. So Stephen Hawking, if he was able-bodied as non-physicists, I think there's a good chance you and I never would have heard of the guy. Now, he was a great physicist, for sure. Like one of the top, you know, 5, from what I understand, in the 20th and early 20th centuries. But we probably never would have heard of him if he wasn't severely disabled. He is a legend of human history because he had the severe disability and was able to be a great, great physicist. He didn't let it stop him, even though he got that severe disability when he was in his 20s. From what I understand is when it hit. So he lived the last 60 years of his life where he wasn't even able to go to the bathroom by himself, or brush his teeth, or walk, or, you know, do hardly anything physically. And yet, he still pursued his dream. And he still became a legend of physics. And so I would argue, if we play our cards right, we can actually really, really impress people with this stutter, because stuttering ain't easy, as we all know. It's not easy. And now how do we do this, right? It's like, all right, Mike, that sounds great. How do we do that? And so 2 things, and it has nothing to do with fluency. One is learn to look people in the eye when you stutter and say exactly what you want to say. So if we don't want to say, My name is Mike. If we don't want to say 5 times, then don't. Say my name is Mike. Nice to meet you. If what we want to say is my name is Mike, nice to meet you, then let's say my name is Mike, nice to meet you. Because then, and with eye contact, and this is utterly key, I was completely shocked when I was 18 years old, and I was totally in my shell before that point. My senior year of high school, so when I was 17 and 18 years old, when neither of my only 2 close friends happened to be in my lunch period, rather than find another table and risk stuttering in front of other kids, I brought my lunch into the bathroom stall my entire senior year of high school for lunch. That whole hour, every day, I hid in the bathroom, smelling other boys' stuff as they came in and used the stall next to me, just the height of degradation and feeling inferior and just living in dread that people would discover this weirdo hiding in the bathroom. Fast forward 5 months, I get to Florida State, signed up for speech therapy there, like just utterly scared of my own shadow and terrified of stuttering in front of anybody. And they brought me around campus and made me learn to look people in the eye and ask questions. So just rather than looking away in shame like that, it was look at people. What I found was people would stick with me when I was looking at them when I stuttered. And I have a peer mentorship program now with people in the Middle East, people in India, people in Taiwan, people all around the world. And this is, everybody's found this to be true, that goes through this eye contact training in the real world, as I like to call it, where we go out and rather than looking away in shame and feeling like that little girl who the whole class is laughing at, right? Or that mom who is disrespecting us when we call, rather than feeling like that, we feel like a grown-up human who is facing that potential reaction. I am going to sit here. Yep, I got a stutter, but I'm going to look you in the eye, look like a full human being, and I'm not going to be disrespectful, and I'm not afraid of what you might think. Well, when I talk like this, and believe it or not, Annie, and I know you have to see it to believe it. You got to experience it to believe it, because the stuttering mind is like, what are you talking about, Mike? Of course people are going to laugh at me. Of course people are going to disrespect me. Of course I'm never going to get the full respect of a human being so long as I'm talking like this, because we've got these experiences from the past that taught us that taught our brain, our neurology. But believe it or not, when you learn to look people in the eye, when you stutter, in the moment, so you see that look on their face at first, that confusion, but they also figure it out much faster. Oh, okay, this guy's got a stutter, I guess, right? When someone's talking like this, it's clear they got a speech impediment. Now, historically, that's the last thing we want for people to know, right? The last thing in the world we want people to know is that we stutter. But that keeps the performance anxiety sky high. when we're walking this tightrope of trying to fool people. And when it's just out there, open and honest, when we have the courage to do that, when we have the honesty, go out and speak, there's a Stephen Hawking effect where people are like, man, God, I respect that guy. He's getting up in front of everybody, giving a speech on national television, and he's like this the whole time, but listen to what he's saying. Listen to the points this guy's making, and look at his courage. Look at his honesty. Wow, I wish I had that kind of courage, right? That's what people sense. So I from the age of 18 on, I decided if I want to say it, I'm saying it. And I'm saying exactly what I want. I'm not saying, 15 times, because that's comes across as bizarre and like I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. I don't want people to think I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, because I do know what I'm talking about. I do. And I'm going to say what I want. I'm going to look them in the eye. And, I pretty quickly developed a perspective. If you have a problem with my stutter, I'm not your guy. Go hang out with somebody else, because I don't know how to control it. If I did, I would. Now in the last 4 years, I have a lot more knowledge of how to control it. But before that, first 41 years of my life, when I was becoming a dentist, when I was building my 5 dental practices, growing it to 240 employees or so, about 30 dentists with the severe stutter, I didn't know how to control it all those years. But I knew that I didn't have to shut up. I knew that I was free to stutter. I knew that I never went to jail for stuttering. I was never charged with a crime. I never had to go to the hospital because of my stuttering. I never died because of my stuttering. The earth never went hurtling off into interstellar space because of my stuttering. Nothing happened other than people were sometimes confused at first, sometimes a little bit impatient, although the vast majority, once they figured out what was going on, would sit there and wait for me to finish. Just like if the person who's deaf asks you to repeat something 2 or 3 times, you do it for them because you're not a jerk, right? And as it turns out, the world was infinitely nicer when it came to my stutter, and infinitely more respectful than I ever imagined before I got that eye contact training and that developed that courage. Decided to stop running away from stuttering. And I know people don't believe this at first. They're like, Mike, I hear you talking, and I wish that were true. But I've got this experience from the 3rd grade or from when I was 11 that taught me what you just said is not true. I am laughable so long as I'm stuttering.
Yeah. I mean, I think that no one can make you feel bad if you do not allow them to. You have to allow someone to make you feel the way they do. So I think you are the first person that has to really respect yourself, because if you do, other people will automatically do too. But if you already feel pity for yourself, and if you feel ashamed about the way you talk, other people will most likely also not really respect you. So no one can make you feel something unless you allow them to. I think that's a very important thing to always remember, right? Because the problem is not stuttering. The problem is that people are too used to fluent speakers. So when they see someone that is struggling, the first thing that they usually do, they look very confused, right? So you can tell them, I stutter, and explain what this means. Or if you don't want to mention, they will probably make their own assumptions. But the fact is that the more confident you are, And I think when you tell people confidently and nicely, I stutter. So sometimes I take my time to talk, but everything is fine. Don't worry. Usually people really tend to like respect. They don't really judge you or look down at you. I think the biggest issue, the big let's say issue, is when people see that you are ashamed of yourself, but they don't even know why. When they see that you feel that you're really contained and you look down and you come across as maybe very shy, that's when I think some people, not like everyone, but I think that's when some people might treat you in a way that will actually make you feel worse. So I think respect yourself first, accept who like you are with everything that you are, and the rest will just follow. I think, people will follow.
I totally agree. And there's one of my favorite quotes in human history is from Eleanor Roosevelt. And she said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent."
Exactly.
And now obviously, when we were little kids, we weren't, trying to consent to anything. It wasn't like our fault or anything like that. It's very understandable that people do feel inferior without feeling like they ever gave their consent. But ultimately, our feelings are ours, right? And they're inside of us. And well, if we give control of our feelings to external forces, people in this case, sometimes the worst of the people that we encounter, if the worst of the people that we encounter, or the most ignorant in some cases, not necessarily that they're bad people, they're just ignorant and they know not what they're doing, they don't know what they're doing when they have these reactions. If we give them control over how we feel, that's a recipe for deep unhappiness, right? And so now the question becomes, well, how are we going to stop feeling inferior? How are we going to stop feeling ashamed? How are we going to be genuinely confident, right? And confidence, I feel like, confidence is defined in my mind as the opposite of a lack of confidence. It's not a thing in and of itself, right? It's just being yourself, being comfortable being you, doing your thing, being happy, not being obsessed with what everybody else thinks, right? Not living to make everybody else happy, but living to be yourself genuinely, the version of yourself that you love, right?
Yeah.
Because we've all got multiple aspects of ourselves inside. Some we want to nurture, some we don't want to nurture. But how do we get to that point where we don't give a damn if
Yeah.
1 out of 50 people might have a negative reaction, or 1 out of 10, whatever the percentage is? And like you said, the percentage of people that'll have a negative reaction goes way down when we're comfortable with ourselves, when we're not ashamed of ourselves. It's human beings are like on a string social. When one person is intensely uncomfortable, well, that makes others around them either uncomfortable or maybe more tempted to exert some sort of dominance over that person, that sort of thing, on subtle levels nowadays. It's not as overt as it used to be, say, a century ago or 2 centuries ago, where people would be like, just openly make fun of the person that was different. It's not like that as much now, at least in the modern West, I think. But how do we, well, another phrase I like which matters early on. And I remember hearing this as a young dentist: fake it till you make it. So in other words, you have to step into that room with the patient with some confidence. If you act like you don't know what the hell you're talking about or what you're doing, well, then they're going to feel that. And it's going to make them really nervous, which is going to make the whole patient dentist experience much more challenging. You need to portray confidence. Don't act like you know things that you don't, per se. Don't say, "Oh, I think you've got this, Mrs. Jones," when she doesn't really have it, because then you're just being a bad doctor. But fake it till you make it. Show confidence. And the big, and I remember this with the dean of my dental school at New York University, New York City. He, even though it was a big class of 300 people, he met with everybody individually in groups of 10. Well, that's not individual, but he met with everybody in groups of 10 so he could get to everybody. He had lunch with us. And the big thing I remember him saying was, when you're talking to patients, keep eye contact. It's going to enhance your communication because you're now not missing all the nonverbal stuff. If they're confused, you're going to see it. If they're anxious, you're going to see it. If they're not, if they're not paying attention, if they're, checking their watch all the time. And those days, everybody didn't have a smartphone, and that portrays confidence, that portrays honesty. That is, nowhere is that more true than in stuttering moments. And we don't have an eye impediment. We have a speech impediment. So we can train ourselves so that we don't look anywhere else in those stuttering moments when we're facing the stuttering wolf, as I like to call it, when we know I'm about to not be able to get this word out. I'm about to struggle on this word, right? Because we usually know right before, that anticipation, or maybe even hours before. Oh, I know I'm going to struggle on my name. I know I'm not going to be able to say my name. We anticipate these moments. We know when the wolf is afoot. We know when he's grown big and powerful in the moment. And so we've got that knowledge. If we say, nope, I'm looking nowhere else but at the person or people, and if it's a group, go one by one. Look at that thing that I'm so afraid of. Because it's clear when it comes to facing fears, the more we run from a fear, the more that fear will chase us. The more we square up to that fear, in the case of stuttering, what are people going to think? That, I think, is the deepest fear. What are they going to think when I start stuttering? To face that thing that we're so afraid of, which is their judgment, which is their reaction in the moment. When I start talking like this, but now I'm seeing that confused look at, or, whatever the various reactions we get, we've all seen them. We all hate them, right? We hate those moments, but like any other fear, for example, if you're afraid of airplanes, how are you going to get over that? Other than just getting on airplanes over and over. Yes, there can be some coaching, there can be some therapy to help prepare us a little bit, but we're never over the fear until we've gotten on an airplane, whatever, 5 times, 10 times, 50 times. And eventually people get over their fear of being on airplanes, right? That's how it works. Or you're afraid of, on top of the Empire, some tall building. Well, keep doing it over and over and over again. It's the same with stuttering. What are we afraid of? People's reaction. Well, if we face it over and over and over again, then eventually, and something else that the eye contact does is it portrays confidence. Even if I'm not feeling confident right now, if I'm looking at you, and this goes back to millions of years of evolution, right? Eye contact is important in the animal kingdom. It was important with our ancestors before we even figured out how to talk, before somebody said, tree, tree, somebody else said, tree. Oh, wait, we can talk? Really? Okay, tree, lion, grass, whatever. We started creating language at some point, right? In human evolution, human history, eye contact was there before that. Eye contact is primal. It is absolutely primal. And it portrays confidence, courage, honesty, and it also keeps people with us. When you ask my name and I'm like, and you don't know what's going on, you're sitting there thinking, man, I asked his name. Is he going to tell me his name? What's happening right now? Whereas when I'm like, Mike Wilson, nice to meet you. People know, oh, he's still with me. He's still talking. I guess he's got a speech impediment. Whereas when we're looking away, they're like, the hell is going on here? So anyway, I didn't plan on turning this whole podcast about eye contact, but I think, well, I know, having gone through it myself, and I've now had 45 people join the peer mentorship program and do this, everybody's mind is blown when they go out. And that's what we do. We go to the mall, we go out on the streets, we're on Zoom together, one person maybe in India, one person in New York City or wherever. I put people in the breakout rooms of two people each, and we talk to other humans. And at first it's all about just realizing, where are we in those moments? Where am I looking, right? Am I looking up? Am I looking down? Am I looking over here? Where am I looking? What am I doing? So that's the first step, is awareness. But people are just shocked at how nice the world is. And we also tell people that we stutter. So we step out of the closet with courage. And as it turns out, the world will actually embrace us when we display that courage and honesty. Because courage and honesty, I think, are universally respected traits. I don't think there's one culture on earth that doesn't respect those virtues, courage and honesty. And so these things can be on display the first time we meet somebody, or say we're stepping up to give a presentation in front of 50 people that are above us in the organization. Well, most presentations that most humans give are pretty similar, right? I've sat through a lot of them. I mean, the content is different, but the basic structure, they can be a little boring, honestly, right? A lot of presentations at work. How many people are just like, I can't wait till this presentation's over, this meeting's over, But when a stutterer is giving it, and they're battling through words, but they're doing it with confidence and they're doing it with courage, everybody's going to remember that presentation. It's memorable. And they can either remember how intensely uncomfortable we looked, and how ashamed we looked, and how uncomfortable the whole thing felt, or they can remember, man, that this girl just hung in there and said what she wanted, and she made good points. She was clearly smart. She clearly knew her stuff, but she had this pretty strong stutter going. That girl's got freaking courage, like, your courage is palpable when you step forward and do that, and so have you ever had moments when you did, when you were intensely sort of worried about it before going into some speaking situation, but you stepped forward and did it, and you were surprised by how, cool people were.
Yeah. Yes, a few times I had to also perform as a singer-songwriter in the past. And of course, you always have to give a few you always have to say a few things before you sing or between songs. So I would say things, and sometimes I would get a few blocks here and there, but I never felt that people were looking at me like, oh my God, everything was fine. Um, and in all the intense situations, like I mentioned, like presentations or at work where I had to do, maybe to talk during a meeting, and a few times, of course, I was very concerned because I really, really wanted to say something that I thought would have been very relevant to the topic. But I was afraid that maybe I wouldn't be able to really explain clearly because of my stutter. But I was able to, and I think those moments I try to think like, Raiani, don't think too much about what people will think. Just say it. Just say it, because I know that if you don't worry, most likely you won't even stutter, or maybe you will, but not so much. So I'm always trying to play like saying, okay, Raiani, think that this is like something that you're just talking to your friends. No one here is really here to judge you. They are your colleagues. They want you well. They want you to do well, to talk well. So it's trying to see the audience not really as enemies, but as friends, because I think that helps you to be more at ease also, and not to feel so much pressure that you might stumble, you might stutter or not. So I think this has actually helped me in the past when I had a situation that I had to talk and I wanted to talk, but I felt, what if I'm not able to, right? Because one of the worst feelings is, let's say you are in a very important meeting, you want to also contribute, but then when you do, you're not really able to say everything, and then people look at you like, we don't really get your point. What are you trying to say? And you try again and you still feel that you're still blocking, you're not able to, and then someone changes the topic because they feel that what you really had to say was not really important, it didn't matter. So that is the worst feeling sometimes that you can have, because for you it matters, and you know that you just were not able to really convey the message because you were nervous, because you stutter. But if you would have been able to know that, so it's like I'm always trying to think, okay, shift the focus. I don't want to focus on my speech 24/7 because it's a nightmare, because I feel trapped within my own speech if I just focus on that, rather than focusing 24/7 on I stutter, what if I stutter, what are people gonna think. I try to think of, okay, what can I actually bring to the table? What can I actually, let's say, offer to my friends, to my team, to what I have to say now, to this topic, to this conversation? What are my talents? What are my skills? Who am I as a person, as a whole? Not just I stutter. What am I really? Because we are not just one thing. We have good, we have bad, we have so many other elements within each side of us. And it's like, just bring all that is good about you. Try to focus on those things. So if you are someone that has the talent to, I don't know, you have the talent to listen to others, you are someone that can give a very good advice, you are someone who is patient, who is calm, or you are someone that can, I don't know, there are so many different skills. For instance, the more I talk to people who stutter, I see that a lot of them have artistic skills. someone plays, someone sings, someone paints, someone full of talents, full of talents. And this should actually make you feel pretty amazing about you, about, yourself. So take something that you know that you are actually good at, and try to bring that. Then when you're feeling down about like I stutter, try to bring that, but I am very good at this, I'm very good at that, and focus on those things to try, to make yourself feel better, and to see that you are much more than just the way that you talk. It's not just about like stuttering, it's about the content, is about what do you have to say. And if people do not really want to listen because they don't like the way that you talk, maybe they're not the people that you should actually be hanging like around, like that you should go out with. Maybe these are people just to have as your colleagues at work, say bye, hi, how are you, bye bye, and that's it. Like try to hang out with people that actually like really see beyond the way that you talk, that can really appreciate you for who you really are, not just by how like you talk. I don't go out with people just because they are fluent or because they have a stutter. I mean, it doesn't matter how people talk. It matters if they are someone who is kind, generous, honest, people, they are good people. That's what should matter. And of course, if they have something nice to say, if we can talk about, let's say, politics, if we can talk about art or all these other topics, that is amazing. But is the content that really matter? How you're gonna say it? I mean, it shouldn't be so relevant to anyone, and we shouldn't be judged because of that. So I think I already went out of the topic that you were asking me before, but I just wanted to say, like, I have had situations of like public speaking that I had to talk, just like radio, interviews. And radio interviews, I always found it very, very hard, because you know that there are many people listening to you and you don't see them. You know that they are there listening. Well, nowadays people don't really listen to radio anymore, but when I was, back maybe almost 20 years ago, people would still listen to the radio a lot more. And then and then I had to sometimes talk, because I was like invited as a singer. And you just try to focus on the content. And there are moments, and also I think it's very important not to be thinking like, oh, I spoke so fluently now, oh, this was well, because then you might like stutter in the next sentence if you're focusing too much on I didn't stutter now, I stuttered now, I didn't now. Because also you are so focused on how you are talking that you might even like forget about what you're saying, because you're so focused on that. So I think it's important to just find your balance, because at the end of the day, we still want to be like to talk as fluent as possible, because we all want to be able to really express ourselves. So I think it's important to find the balance that even if you like stutter, that you don't feel this as being an issue. Yes, I stuttered through this whole interview, but I was able to talk. I was there. I was like courageous enough to be there to talk for 1 hour, for 30 minutes, for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. You were there. So just let your like light shine, like shine through you. Everything that you have to say, it doesn't matter if you like stutter or not. Just be you. As hard as this can be sometimes, because it's very cliche to say be yourself, but sometimes it's not easy when you feel that being yourself is a reason to be ashamed. So there is no reason to be like ashamed, because you didn't do anything wrong. It's just something that you cannot really control. Is there anything wrong with that? Is there a reason to feel shame? No, it's not. So I think we should really try to shift the focus and stop thinking the entire time how am I speaking now, or what what people think, because the people that will pick on your speech like impediment are the same people that would pick on like anything else. They would find something in you to criticize you for. So just focus on the good people, on the people that really like you for who you are. And if you stutter, what can you do? If you don't, great too, but don't feel bad about it, and don't really stop doing things that you really, really want to do just because of that, because you will be missing out so much, so many like opportunities if you keep running away from everything that you want, from all of your dreams, because you feel that you can't, because of like the way that you talk. So I think it's very important, and this comes back to the point of confidence. How do we build, confidence? I think it's changing the self image that we have about ourselves, because even like sometimes we might think that people are thinking something about us when they're not. It's not always true. It's like we think, we like assume, but sometimes people just actually, they don't even realize that we have a speech like impediment, or they don't care that we talk in a different way. So I think it really starts with us trying to change this self-image that we have, and that we build throughout all of these years, because the more time passes, the more you get so used to thinking in a certain way, the more you get used to seeing yourself in a certain way. So I think sometimes you have to take a step back and try to see yourself as a third person, and sometimes we make such a big thing when maybe others actually don't. And the more we talk about it, the more we actually try to say I stutter, the more I think people respect that and will give us the time to talk. So yeah, I think in situations where you have to talk, I was, for instance, invited to talk for the Brazilian Stuttering Conference during the International Awareness Stuttering Day, International Stuttering Awareness Day. And I remember that I was supposed to talk for, I think it was 40 minutes. No, I was 30 or 40 minutes. And I was so scared because I'm not used to talking in public. And I was supposed to talk without anyone really, interviewing me. I was supposed to talk for 30 minutes non-stop. And I was at home rehearsing. And every time I would finish everything in 10 minutes because I'm so used to rushing myself. I'm so used to it. It's something it's very difficult to change, and it takes time. So I was so concerned because like, my God, I am finishing in 10 minutes every time. I need to feel more comfortable at talking and not feeling that I have to rush, because I am always the one rushing myself, because I feel that people might not be so interested in listening to what I have to say, because what I have to say might not be so interesting, so important, so relevant. I don't know why, but I got so used to rushing myself. So at the end, I was able to talk for all of that time, which I was surprised, like, my God, I managed to do it. And I was so proud. For me, it was such a proud moment. Not even that I spoke fluently, because I started so much, because I was so nervous. I started like crazy, but I was able to use all of my time rather than rushing every time. So I was really proud. And I think that for me was one moment that I was like, I started a lot, but I felt like I did it. I spoke for 30 minutes nonstop, regardless of how I was talking. So I think this is one of the things that I find very challenging still, because I have also been invited to other like speaking situations with other people in a video where I had like maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And I felt that I rushed myself, and I said everything in maybe like 8 minutes, because I was anxious because I was nervous, because my like stutter, because I was like really blocked. And because I was blocking too much, I started to feel more like, let's say, anxious about it. And I just wanted to finish as soon as possible, because it's such an agony. You just feel like, oh, that's so annoying. I'm trying to talk and I am, that I just rushed. So it's for me, this is like something that I'm still working on. It's not something that I got it and that's it. For me, every time I have to be conscious about it. It's easier if there is one person really asking me the question and I have to answer. But it's different in a conference where you are given the like floor and you are supposed to talk for a certain time. So it's something that I'm still working on and might take time, but at least now I am conscious, you know?
Yeah, that's the, first step, I think, to making any kind of modification in what we do with anything in life is to first be aware of what is happening. And yeah, that learning to resist the time pressure, right? And sometimes the time pressure is coming from inside of us. A lot of times it is. Sometimes we feel it coming from outside, which happens also, right? And then we start to feel guilty about, why am I taking so long to get these words out? I'm wasting people's time. And that, you're so right on that. I like to call it learning to divorce our emotions from our stuttering moments, so that we don't feel, because, well, and we talked about on the front end of the stuttering moment, right? The seeing the word coming or seeing the presentation coming and just anticipating it and, feeling bad before the moment. But then after the moment, feeling bad that it happened, then stuttering is like dominating our life, right? It's before the stuttering, we're worried. After the stuttering, we're worried. And I think it's so key to just to see it for what it is. It's a stutter. It slows us down when we talk. Nothing more, nothing less. And when we do have all these surging emotions surrounding stuttering moments, right? Negative emotions surrounding those moments, that really sucks up a lot of our mental energy and a lot of our just capacity as a human being to focus on what's going on at those other moments fully, right? So whether it's before the presentation or after, if stuttering is effectively impeding our brain's ability to be present in those other moments, then it's just really really causing deep issues in our productivity and our happiness and all that stuff. So, I think learning to live in the moment, right? Practicing mindfulness, for example, and knowing how to just be present in the current moment. So I'm not sitting here worried about my presentation a week from now. Yes, prepare for the presentation, of course, know your stuff. And after the presentation, nothing wrong with learning from it. Oh, I explained it in this way and they didn't seem to understand that. Okay, next time I'll do it in this way. Nothing wrong with learning from the experience. But you're so right with separating. Famous basketball player Kobe Bryant called it getting over yourself, and not feeling that pressure to be perfect and, oh, what are other people going to think? Just sort of stepping outside of ourselves and looking at this for what it is, which is a person giving a presentation that has a stutter. And an example I like to mention, when people are, well, let's say you're going to order some food, right? And, you want a turkey sandwich. How many folks that stutter, myself included, during those deeply fearful years. Even though I wanted the turkey sandwich, I might order the ham sandwich because I could say ham, not turkey. Because in our mind, we're seeing it as a failure if I go in there and stutter when I say turkey. Well, that's a big failure and I have to avoid that. But what's the point of speaking in that situation? To get the food that you want. That's the only reason that you're talking with, you know, this
Yeah.
individual at this time that works in the store. So the whole point of it is to get turkey sandwich from here into the employee's head so that you get your turkey sandwich, you get what you want. So if that's the whole point of talking, not to be fluent, and you get your turkey sandwich, then mission accomplished, right? Even if it's turkey sandwich, please. Yeah, you stuttered, but you got your sandwich. You achieved the goal of that speaking interaction, which was to communicate what you wanted. So, and that can be totally true of a presentation also, yes. And yes, I'll admit, we are going to cover less total ground if we're stuttering a lot, if we've only got a certain window. We will cover less total ground, but more incentive to sort of be concise with our words, to really pack a lot of meaning into our words and really get to the point. Because lots of people in presentations, their problem is they make them too long. They're not concise enough. They just ramble, and then blah, do this, and they just ramble on and on and on and on and on, and they say way too much, and that degrades the quality of their presentation. And lots of non-stuttering people, and just people in general, do that. So if we can pack a lot of meaning into our words, but say what we want to say in the intelligent order in which we thought those words, right? Then we can still totally achieve the goal of the presentation. So it's not like, I stuttered a lot, so it automatically wasn't that good of a presentation because I stuttered a lot. No. Did I communicate the crucial things that I wanted to communicate? And that can only happen if we choose, if we first have something quality to say, and then we hang in there and we say what we want to say.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but so we've been, as I am notorious for, we've gone over time here. So we're about to wrap it up, but I would ask, is there anything that you wanted to talk about, or any subjects that we didn't get to that you want to bring up here near the end?
I would like to mention that I'm also the founder of a platform called Stuttering Society, if people want to check it out. It works also as a social media platform too, where people can just, let's say, register, add friends, send private messages. There are a lot that people can do there. There are many interviews too. So if people want to check it out, it's www.stutteringsociety.com. And thank you so much again for having me here today. It has been a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, I've enjoyed it very much. And as far as that Stuttering Society, so is there a Facebook page, or is it on WhatsApp or Instagram? Or?
Yeah, so we are on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and also on TikTok. So it's the same name, actually. It's Stuttering Society.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, so I encourage people to check that out. The proliferation of stuttering support options over the pandemic has been breathtaking. I mean, it is such a massive change, and I suspect that'll stick around long after the pandemic. I think it's probably a permanent change in stuttering history, where you've got this plethora of support opportunities no matter where you are in the world. As long as you have the internet, you've got a lot of great options, and Stuttering Society is another great addition into that. So thanks for that work, and yeah, we very much appreciate you joining us. I know that people will enjoy and get a lot out of your perspective and the conversation. So let's stay in touch for sure.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. And all the best with everything that you have been doing for the stuttering community. So thank you so much for all of your support.
Much appreciated. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.